The first time I made this recipe was after my mother had passed away because she always made the bread dressing for our turkeys. This is the same recipe that her mother used too. Start with the bread. I only used 1 loaf of bread this time rather than 2 because we're making a smaller portion. I dried out the bread for at least 4 days so it's toasty and crisp. It's very dried and you just break it up in smaller pieces. And you do that with a whole loaf of bread. Years ago, rather than buy a loaf of bread, they would just take all the bread that they had that was stale and use it. After my mother passed away, your father was able to help me with the bread, and he would sit in the den pulling the bread apart. And he would just sit there, so we had 2 great big trays of pulled apart bread. Let's go on to the next step. Usually with this amount of bread, we'll use half of this. This isn't quite a pound of bacon, and we'll fry it up in here. Take the bacon out when it's, say, halfway cooked. I will put it on a plate with paper towels, and I'll put it in the microwave to crisp it up. Then I'll check and see how much bacon fat I have in there. After that, I'll put the onion and the celery and a little bit of garlic in there. Take the bacon out, and I will put it on a plate with paper towels. Take it over to the microwave just for a minute. I'll check it. I don't want it too crispy. Turn it on for 1 minute. Express. Looks pretty good. I think it's done. It will cook up. And the dressing. Now the next step is, it's about 250. I had 1 medium size onion that I cut up, and I had 3 ribs of celery and 2 cloves of garlic. You get that nice smell. You don't want to brown them. You just want to soften them up. A lot of people like to use water to steam the vegetables. What I'm going to use is chicken stock. I'm going to pour a little of this in. And I'm going to cover this, and we're going to steam these vegetables until they're soft. It'll just take a few minutes. It doesn't take long. The bread is stale, so we want to soften it up a little bit. So what we do, we pour chicken stock on it. And you just kind of move it around a little bit with your hands. So that it softens it up a little bit. And we're going to take 2 eggs, whip them up, pour that on the bread. Again, you work your hands through all of this. Now, we'll take the vegetables out and put the vegetables on top of the dressing. I'm not using all the juice, it would be too moist. I like to leave the celery a little crunchy. Now I take this over to the other counter, and I take the bacon, cut it into smaller pieces. Take this parsley, put this on top. Nice and green still. Once again, we'll stir it up just a little bit. I'm going to use just a little of the Old Bay seasoning. Adds to the taste. I'll do a teaspoon of salt. Poultry seasoning, which is always good. And a little thyme. I set the temperature at 400 for about 30-35 minutes, but I will check it just to make sure it doesn't brown too quickly. I just pulled the dressing out of the oven and decided that I would put a few pats of butter on it to kind of crisp it up a bit. And then I'll put it back in the oven and check it again. It smells good. Dressing looks good. Now we're going to have a little taste test.
Excellent.
It's good.